Alright, welcome back, and it's time to take a look at the new Bodyguard Dreadnoughts. Now I know I am a little bit late on these ships, primarily because the test server was dead up until this morning. So once I heard that it's up, I decided, you know what, let's just see how these new ships will perform. And naturally, I will start with the Revelation Bodyguard. After all, I do have a Revelation on the live server. I've been using a Revelation for the past couple of years, and I just like this ship, so it will be the first ship that I will take a look at. So these ships did have a new module to go along with them. They are kind of, as I like to look at them, as capital guardians, but their purpose is a bit different. So the roll bonus plus 37.50% weapon disruption resistance and a 60-second capital emergency hull energizer activation time. It can fit siege modules, and obviously it can fit a capital close-in defense guns. Now you do get some normal skill bonuses, some extra armor resistance, pulse laser damage. Now these ships are designed to keep fleets and other capital ships safe from smaller ships, and that's why the focus on these ships will be primarily on the more rapid firing weapons, on the close range weapons. So these bodyguards are primarily designed to be used with the close range options of the weapon systems that they have. The Revelation obviously is a armor tank. Don't shield tank the Revelation unless it is the level 45 troll build with a bunch of shield boosters and basically infinite capacitor. I might try that out on this ship at one point. Now onto the build. I built this ship in the mirror image of my old Revelation build. Have pulse lasers, and there is the new close-in weapon in the special module slot. Also siege mode. It's designed to be used as a tanky ship. After all, it has the Bodyguard in its name, so that tells me it should be a tanky ship. And these ships did find a very good purpose in null space, especially on low-sec gates where you can park a bunch of these ships. Any small ship that comes in, it gets hit by the close-in guns. There's basically nothing that can escape the close-in guns, and they made null space actually feel like null space actually feels dangerous, because interceptors can get yeeted very easily, like smart bombs basically. You do have only one nanocore at the moment. I suspect in the future all the nanocores might be available, but for now you only have this nanocore here, and well, I don't know how to obtain this nanocore. I mean, I can obtain it easily on the test server, but I decided to go and do, you know, the classic build without a nanocore in a good old way. 120 is the energizer activation time, which is decent enough. Only affects hull resistance, and it's kind of a panic button to save your ship in case of extreme danger. On this ship you can use 3-4 implants. We'll have to unlock the multi-frequency later on, but you can use the pulse crystal, focus crystal, or thermal circulation. If you plan to use this ship on a low-sec gate to destroy interceptors, which is actually kind of a profitable thing, because these interceptors can carry a lot of very nice stuff. You can get some good loot if you catch the right interceptor. So thermal circulation and 8.2 million in total defense, 1.4 million in armor. Should be quite tanky, and with a chunky build like this you should be safe against super capitals as well. One of my friends has managed to tank 4 different super capitals with a versatile assault ship, using a very similar build to this one. So yeah, it's definitely doable to tank these ships, and especially the newer ones are able to do that quite easily. Okay, Let me refuel, and let's undock, and let's take a look at the active stats of this ship. So again, these are new ships, technically new ships, and they do kind of feel like the Lancers in a way. I feel like they are tankier than the Lancers, but I will have to compare them at one point. So let's take a look at the resistances of the Bodyguard revelation. The name Bodyguard, I actually expected them to have a shield, fill bubble, or armor link modules, but turns out their overall purpose is a little bit different from a ordinary Guardian. For now, at least. We will see if that will change. 19 million total hit points, 92 to 94% armor resistance. Not bad. Should last long. I mean, my was a Tempest Navy was able to withstand a super capital with very similar resistances. This thing would be able to tank those ships much easier, especially with those crazy resistances. So you can take a look at the stats of the close-in defense guns. They have some very nasty tracking. They can hit up to 4 targets simultaneously. And you have 3 different variations. One variation for drones and fighters, other variation only for ships, and there's a third variation that targets fighters, drones and ships, but that has the smallest number of damage. They are doing kinetic damage primarily. They also do have good range. Basically, if you're sitting at a gate, it will cover the whole gate. There's very few gates where you can't use them. I think you can literally use them at all possible gates in the game, because with skills you can get the range up, you can get the damage up, and yeah, you can one-shot interceptors with this. If positioned properly, you can one-shot interceptors. But I would recommend, if you plan to camp nullsec gates, bring 2 or 3. I would say 3 to be safe. That way, anything that comes in will get hit by 3 ships simultaneously. And yeah, it will have more than enough damage to delete a interceptor. Also, they will target friendly ships unless they are in a fleet, so you have to make sure that if you do have friendly ships passing by, make sure that they are in a fleet. So this was the chunky build, the safer build as I like to call it, because a build like this is quite difficult to go through. Very tanky, and it suits the purpose of these ships quite well. Now, I put the close-in gun with a bit more damage. This is the close-in gun that you probably will see most often in nullsec on nullsec gates, and honestly you can focus more on, I guess, battery performance, battery capacitor performance and repair, if you like, depending on what you want to do with this ship, of course. But from what I have seen, these ships are primarily being used on nullsec gates right now to destroy interceptors. They are very good at PvE as well, so their main purpose is definitely camp and PvE. You know, it's like the developers have seen my revelation videos and they thought to themselves, okay, let's give this guy another revelation, but in this case, it can catch interceptors. That's always something that crosses my mind occasionally, because I know that they watch what we do. So I made a couple jokes that if the dreadnoughts had smart bombs, and here we are, technically kind of like a smart bomb. I kind of feel like it is a smart bomb, just reskinned into a weapon system, into a turret system. So that's pretty funny, and I think we will see more of that type of weapon system coming to battleships as well at one point. Maybe even we will get something like that on other ship types. We will see, but there is definitely they opened a new can of worms with the close-in guns, that's for sure. You can also do a 4 adaptive build. I mean, you can pretty much build this ship in any way that you want. If you are looking to have maximum possible resistance against super capital hot drops, then you don't really need a capacitor battery. You can do something like this and focus only on resistance. Basically, a build like this would only work if you plan to only use the close-in gun, and if you get jumped, you can just jump through the gate by tanking for 60 seconds, because with a build like this you can definitely pull that off quite easily. And I would actually recommend, from my experience, to use the normal damage control, because you can actively use the damage control while the energizer is pretty much only a panic button. 20 million hit points, 92 to 95%. Yeah, this is pretty tanky, not gonna lie, this is definitely pretty tanky. And we'll be able to withstand a super capital just fine.
Docking request accepted.
Even the Nix with the DPS shred will have trouble to go through a ship like this in a reasonable time frame. Of course, if you get neuted, that's a different thing, but you should still have a good capacitor on this ship. And with the normal damage control, the normal damage control is more of an active module. It can be used multiple times. The only problem with the classic damage control is that, not exactly a problem, but it gives less resistance, less passive resistance. The energizer gives better passive resistance, which I actually like a bit more. 91 to 94, not bad. Not bad. It is still more than enough. And obviously, if you want to focus on resistance, you can always change the rigs to your liking, so that's always a possibility. 90 million with the damage control active, 99% resistance, basically immortality for about 13 seconds, which is pretty nice. More than enough time to absorb Bombard, that's for sure. So the main,
Docking request accepted.
the main implant, or the main weapon system at the moment in the game, fighters and drones. That's why I use that as a DPS benchmark, because that's the nastiest weapon system and nastiest DPS that we have in the game right now. At least we will see if that will change down the road as the game progresses. Now, since these ships are kind of meant to be used against the smaller targets, you can easily use the barrel weapons or the high angle weapons. The other name would be the high angle weapons. More players know them as the high angle weapons, and you can either keep the resistance, or if you want to use this ship for PvE, or if you want a bit more DPS, you can do that as well. You can do the classic 3 burst rig build, or 2 burst and 1 collision. I usually go for 3 burst because of the skills and implant. It scales up a little bit better DPS wise, gives a little bit better DPS, but you can do the burst and collision combination if you like as well. And this is how it would look. Still has some good tank, but that's about to change, because I will have to. Now, when you go and fit this ship for PvE, I would still recommend that you keep some form of tank, like 3-4 heatsinks in this case would be, I would say, the acceptable upper limit, the normal limit, without having to encounter a lot of drawback. So 3 or 4 heatsinks, and the rest of the modules could be, it can be resistance, it can be repair, it can be anything that you want. You can even add tracking computers if you like. I mean, I usually leave that up to player preference. But with these ships at the moment, especially with the close-in weapon that you have, you don't really need to have tracking computers, because the close-in gun will simply just yeet anything that gets close to you, up to 4 targets. So stuff getting close is not much of a problem with these ships. I mean, I think they hit up to like 30, 50, 40 kilometers, something like that. So even the longer range tackle will still get hit by the Bodyguard close-in defense weapons. And of course, with this, you can use the focus crystal or the pulse crystal. I prefer the focus crystal because it scales up nicely. Although the pulse crystal is also good enough, but if you have either of these two implants, it will work just fine, so you don't have to worry about not having either of these two implants. If you have one of them, that's going to be more than enough. So, let me just do one more web. Having lots of webs and then a grappler will be beneficial. Grapplers are kind of, I don't want to say a must-have, but grapplers are definitely going to make the bodyguard's life easier against smaller ships. And let's go and run a laboratory. I haven't done one of these in ages over here.
Autopilot engaged.
I forgot how long the tester was offline. More than half a year, I think. Or maybe close to a year, I don't know. But it's been a very long time
Destination reached.
since this was offline. Now it's back. Now it is back and working, and I can do a lot more tests. So, as I mentioned, the bodyguard dreadnoughts end up being very good for camping, very good for PvE. Not really sure if that was intentional or not, but they made nullsec feel like nullsec again, and a lot of players are not exactly happy about that.
Warp drive active.
I can understand. I mean, having AFK intercept a taxi for 5 years was I think for too long, I would say. And players did also ask for something to make nullsec a bit more unsafe, and these ships kind of brought that to the table, because they basically cannot miss, and interceptors get hit. Freighters, I mean transport ships, anything that is within the range. Even you get hit even while exiting warp, by the way. While you're landing you get hit. So that's pretty wild. Like smart bombs in a way. Okay, so what do you think? How quickly am I going to be able to clear the laboratory mission here? Admittedly, I feel like the overall total main weapon damage on these ships isn't as high as, let's say, the Bane or the classic Revelation. I feel like the other two types of dreadnought have overall better main weapon damage and better main weapon DPS, but they don't have the anti-tackle of this ship. And as you can see, it effectively does hit up to 4 targets. Now it automatically picks the targets, and I think smart bombs also have a limit to how many targets they can hit. So, as I mentioned before, the closed-in weapons really do feel like risking smart bombs into a turret system. Personally, I'm fine with that. I mean, I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to complain too much, because this is something that players kind of have been requesting for years now, and it's finally here. Surprisingly good application for PvE so far, because you can leave the smaller ships to the close-in defense weapon system, while your main weapons can be used to focus down the large ships. This could technically make the semi-AFK playstyle work better. I wouldn't be using this for full AFK, although you can with the combination of close weapon system plus the main weapon. But for a semi-AFK playstyle, if you just want to focus on the large ships, you can do that. The close-in weapons are able to destroy all ships up to a battle cruiser quite effectively, leaving you enough room to focus on the large ships to actually take the main weapons to good use. Well, this is kind of what I expected. Not exactly a full smart bomb PvE, but it's definitely getting there. It's in its own way, I would say, pretty interesting. And I understand why players do like these ships. Well, I mean, they like them, and at the same time, a lot of players dislike them, primarily because
Enemy ships
they
detected.
are able to block low
We
sec
are
gates
under
in null
attack.
space, which makes navigating null space a bit more dangerous. I would say the most danger is definitely near the low sec gates. I don't really expect to see a bodyguard in the middle of nowhere just sitting on a gate, but that's also possible. I mean, you can pretty much expect them anywhere now, to be honest. But they are mostly found on the low sec gates. Can they be used for PvP fleets? I would say yes. I feel like these ships are a good protection, good anti-tackle for the other capital ships, for other supercarriers, and in the future for Titans as well. So they do have a purpose, and they do have a role. And then there is the question, am I going to fly one since they're so good at yeeting interceptors? Probably not. Right now I'm doing something different. I like to jump around with Black Ops ships, and I like to go. I started to enjoy going really deep with Black Ops ships. That's the thing that I usually do nowadays. It's fun. I started to really enjoy it. It's exciting, that's for sure. Especially, I can finally put my
Enemy
super
ships
capital
detected.
dodge skills to good use, because the last like three times
We are
now, I
under
think,
attack.
we were stared
We are
down by a
under
bunch of
attack.
super capitals, and it's pretty funny when you take a bait, which I knew it was a bait, and then out of the blue, like 3 or 4 or 5 super capitals spawn, and then when everyone starts to attempt to warp off, every single Black Ops goes in a separate direction. It was such a mess, but it was funny. It was pretty funny. More on that in one of the next PvP videos. I don't know when I will assemble that one, because I should take my time with the PvP part, because I want it to be funny. I want it to be good. But anyway, back to the Bodyguard here. I mean, for a Bodyguard, this thing sure has some good PvE ability, that's for sure. I feel like it's another case of a ship built for one purpose that got repurposed by the players to do something completely different. I'm not I'm not against that. I mean, I usually say use the ship for whatever you want. Honestly, the ships are here, and it's down to us, the player, to make it work and to make it interesting. I think players made the Bodyguards interesting in their own way, and I suspect the next ship class that will get some form of closed-in weapon, it would be a battleship. However, I think with battleships it would be more of a classical AoE weapon. I feel like the battleships might get an actual smart bomb, or something that is very similar to smart bombs. Not in a way like the closed weapons are smart bombs, but in a way that it's an actual like smart bomb type weapon. I don't know when that will happen. I just have a feeling that that's the next thing that will be there, because that's usually how it goes. We have seen that trend in the past in this game, and I think that trend will continue in the near future with the battleships. Maybe even a new class of battleships that are going to be able to fit the special type of weapon. Maybe they might have even 2 or 3 special slots for that specific weapon, like 3 main guns and, for example, 3 smart bomb type weapon systems.
Enemy ships
There's
detected.
definitely interesting things happening with the game. I
We
feel
are
like the game
under attack.
has improved. There are aspects of it that I don't like, as I have
We
been
are
saying for
under
years. For
attack.
example, the implants are one of the things in the game that I don't quite like. I don't like the DPS spike that we have, even though it's getting a little bit better now with how stuff is being handled, but the DPS spikes are still there, and the DPS spikes are I think the DPS spikes are my main problem with the game are DPS spikes, even though I have some pretty stupidly DPS ships like the Dominic's Navy, which is able to hit close to cold super capital level DPS. For example, that's the thing I have a problem with, dumb amount of DPS and implants that are just obviously broken. That's my main issue with the game. There are some other problems, but the DPS spike, I feel like that's the main problem. Well, yeah, I mean this is, I legitimately enjoyed this little PvE run with this ship. This thing gets the job done. I cannot say that it doesn't get the job done. It does. It's a surprisingly good PvE ship. It seems to handle this just fine. It also has PvE usages. If you like to camp, well, this is pretty much the camper's dream ship because it can catch interceptors. So if you have such a little system where you know interceptors are passing through, and if you have like two or three more buddies with you that also like to camp, like to do stuff like that, try to get like 3 bodyguards, and just sit on the gate and wait. Anything coming in will get yeeted. Any ship coming in will get hit. But yeah, with that being said, that would be it for the Revelation Bodyguard. You can expect the other 3 bodyguards to make an appearance very, very soon. I'll be working on those videos, and with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed. If you would like to support me, feel free to like and subscribe, and with that being said, stay safe, fly safe, and as always, I'll see you next time.